Hello, welcome to Kia e-Niro Diaries. It's the 2nd of May. Now, the following video, it all happened about a couple of weeks ago when I had a little bit of a problem with a 12-volt battery. Got myself in a bit of a pickle, to be honest. And it really showed that I didn't understand exactly what you should do in terms of charging when you've got a problem with a 12-volt battery. Now, there's loads of YouTube videos, and if you're on a Facebook page like I am, I don't look at it that often, to be honest, but there's one for the Kia e-Niro in the UK. There's a lot of people there who've had problems with the 12-volt batteries, and it seemed to me that the common element in those problems was that they had something like an OBD device plugged in or some other device that they were using for monitoring. And I thought, well, I'm not going to have that problem, but, you know, it might be a good idea to change the battery every few years. But of course, when you think about it, a battery, the 12-volt battery in an EV doesn't have to do very much. There's no sort of cranking current that, you know, when you turn the engine over, this sort of massive surge of current. It's really just a legacy product that's become a standard because, you know, all your lights and window winders and windscreen wipers, it all runs off of 12 volts. It's become an industry standard. Now, my feeling on it is the future of cars is EVs. End of story, full stop. There's no more debate about it. So why are we still hanging on to these 12-volt batteries? I mean, none of the big car companies are putting any investment into internal combustion engines anymore. So the need to crank a heavy lump of metal into action just isn't going to be there. All you need is something small and capable of accessing the big battery to maintain the voltage on the 12 volt. Anyway, as I say, got myself in a bit of a pickle, but it turned out to be a fault of my own making. We went to use the car one day and it wouldn't start. So following is what happened a few weeks ago, and you'll see that it was a bit of a learning curve for me.
Kia e-Niro Diaries. It's Friday, it's April, and this is the first big problem we've got with the car. Went to use it this morning. It first came up to say there's a problem with the brakes, check the brakes. Then we tried to switch it off again and then on again, and it didn't detect the key. So we got the spare key. It didn't detect the spare key either. And I've just measured the voltage on the 12-volt battery, and it's only 5.7 volts. 5.59, 5.6 volts. Now, I think what we did last night, we shut the tailgate, and there was something jammed. There was a piece of cloth that got jammed, and the tailgate didn't close properly. So that was a few hours ago. I wasn't sure that if you could charge a 12-volt battery on an EV in exactly the same way as you do with a fossil fuel car. The reason I doubted that was that I used to have a Toyota Prius, and the 12-volt battery on that wasn't good, and when I plugged it in to the charger, the needle just kept kicking around, and it turned out that you have to disconnect the DC to DC step-down transformer as well, because obviously in a something like a hybrid, there's no certainly not in the Toyota Prius, there's no alternator to charge the battery. The 12-volt battery charges from the traction battery, and it's a DC to DC conversion down to the 12 volts. I assumed it would be the same here, so I phoned the dealer, and he said, no, you just plug it in as normal, you don't have to do anything special. So plug my battery charger in. Hadn't used it for many years, and the fuse had blown on that. I borrowed a fuse and another battery charger from my neighbour, blew the fuse again, but I plugged his charger in, and that's all working okay. Now, we know that the reason the 12-volt battery ran down was because when we came back yesterday, we didn't close the tailgate properly, and we had because this thing gets used like a van, you know. Mrs. e-Niro works for does some work for a charity, and she's always carting stuff around for them, and she wants to protect the back of the car. So she put some like an old bed sheet down in there, and that bed sheet had got rammed in the little hook at the back, and so the gate wouldn't close, tailgate wouldn't close properly. So anyway, I measured the voltage on the 12-volt battery, and it was down at 5.7, 5.8 volts. So I'm going to see how it's doing now and see if we can get it started. So on the multimeter now getting 13 and a bit volts, whereas before it was about 5.6. So hopefully it'll all power up when I get in the car and try it. So that all seems to be working now. There's a battery near-death experience, I think you could say, and it was all our fault because this piece of protective cloth here got stuck in the hook, and so the battery never the tailgate never closed, so that was our fault. No panic. So here we are 2 days later. It's beautiful weather. And I thought the battery saga was over, but it isn't. Now, when I charged the battery up on Friday, I just needed to get it up to a level where Mrs. e-Niro could use it on Friday afternoon, which is when we had the storm raging, by the way. And she did a good sort of 50-kilometre round trip, and I thought, well, that should charge the battery back up again. Today, I went to the boulangerie this morning. No problem, started it, came back, that's 10 kilometres, and it's in desperate need of an internal clean out. It's got a little bit, as Blackadder said, like a dung beetle who's lost interest in his appearance and really let himself go. Know how it feels sometimes. So anyway, I've had the doors open and the tailgate open, and we were just going to pop out somewhere just before or just after having some lunch, and completely dead. Even with the key in the car, wouldn't register, nothing. So I've done a bit of research on this, and by the way, if you are interested and have an e-Niro or any other electric car, probably other than a Tesla, I suggest you look at Mr. EV, which is Andrew Till on YouTube, who went through this in some detail about a year and a bit ago, February 2021, with his e-Niro. His e-Niro was I think a 2-year lease, so he's now changed that for an Ioniq 5. But it seems that it's a weakness with these cars. I think it's a pretty low quality 12-volt battery that's in there. I'm going to have to go and change it, I think, because it doesn't seem to be holding the charge. So if you watch Andrew Till's video, Mr. EV, he goes through in some detail and about making sure the auxiliary battery tick is on, so you can go into the driving assistance. There's a mode on the car. Anyway, I'm not going to go through it here. I know mine is on, which means that if the 12-volt battery gets low, it should detect that even when it's locked and switched off and start charging automatically from the big battery. Anyway, I'm just going to go and have a look at see what voltage we've got on this. So it's been on charge for about 18 minutes, and I was reading 13.2, and now it's already within 5 minutes dropped off to 13.01. It's going to be enough to say it's just about closing these relays. You can hear them clicking away in this little box here. You have to have enough voltage in the 12-volt battery to open the relays to access the big battery and all the systems that go with that. And the cat seems very interested and probably has some comment to make about my complete lack of electrical engineering skills. Anyway, there we go. To me, this has an impact on what I call reliability. So people have different definitions of reliability. With me, it's quite simple. Can I use the device to do it what it needs to do? It can not be working quite as good as it could, like maybe the heating isn't working or something's gone wrong with the subsystem, but if the wheels turn and it gets you to where you're going, to me that's reliable. So the 100% reliability of this car, in other words, every time we want to use it, it's available to use. that's now gone. We've had a couple of hours this week where we went to use the car, and because of the 12 volt, it wasn't available for us to use. Not a big deal. We weren't doing anything seriously important, but it's just, if we were, it was for our jobs or anything like that, that would be an issue. But anyway, see how this story ends, because I'm going to try to get a new battery tomorrow, and I'm going to try to get a better quality one.
So in the end, I didn't go and rush out and buy another 12 volt battery. I had to think about it with the best of my thinking, and went to speak to a friend of mine who lives not far away from here in France. He's got a 2017 Ionic. It was actually a ex-demo model, so it was probably one of the first in the country. He's had it for 5 years now. It's been perfectly fine. And it's the 28 kilowatt hour battery, and he's actually taken it all the way down to Spain this week, I think, although we're having fantastic weather here. Anyway, I asked him about his the 12 volt battery, and he says yes, he has had a problem, but only in the winter when it was really cold, and they were I think they'd left the lights on or something. So we had the bonnet up on the Hyundai Ioniq round at my friend's house, and it's got exactly the same 12 volt battery as the one in the Kia. I guess it's a Honda Motor Group standard battery. They have a subsidiary company called Mobis, which is actually one of I think it's the 6th or 7th biggest car parts supplier in the world. Interestingly, Hyundai Motor Group are one of the more vertically integrated car manufacturers. In fact, I think they're the only car manufacturer to have their own steelworks. But anyway, little sort of factoid there. So anyway, he's had his car for 5 years. He's done 85,000 kilometres. He's on the same battery. And what he's done is, like a lot of people have, and you'll see YouTube videos on this, he's got himself one of these, which I've now bought, and it's a 12 volt booster battery. It can be used to charge your mobile phones as well. Comes with a couple of jump leads, a very bright LED light, were you to need that. I've got myself one of those. So if I get in a pickle again with, as you saw on the video, we got something in the tailgate got jammed, so that didn't close. I then didn't charge it properly after that, because Mrs. e-Niro wanted to use it. And then the following day, what am I doing? I'm cleaning the car out. I've got all the doors open. I get distracted by something else that's happening, so leave that for half an hour, come back. I mean, these doors must have been open for I don't know, 45 minutes, an hour, and when we went to go off, again, dead. So it's just a question of making sure your doors are closed, and also the other thing to bear in mind is that you've got the auxiliary battery saver option ticked, which is a menu we'll just go through in a minute. Now, interestingly, the other day I came out to the car a couple of days ago. It had plenty of charge in the main battery. It wasn't plugged in. It was unlocked, and one of the blue lights or green lights, whatever, I don't know, I'm a bit colourblind, one of the lights in the front that flashes when the car is charging was flashing. And apparently what that means is that the big battery is sensing that the 12 volt battery needs a little top up, and it does that automatically whether the car's switched on or not. And as I say, you should have that as an option. It comes as a default option, but you can untick it if you want. I've checked and it's ticked on mine, and I think it's the same in the Hyundai as well. It was all a bit of a fuss about nothing. Got myself in a bit of a pickle and a worry. I mean, if my friend's battery is 5 years old, still going on, and when you think about it, a lead acid battery should last a lot longer in an electric vehicle than it does in a fossil car, because, as I say, there's none of this heavy having to turn, cold engine against oil and all that inertia, which is why these 12 volt batteries, I mean, the one in this is 45 amp hours. Obviously at the initial moment of cranking, electrical engineers tell me it actually pulls slightly more than that for a fraction of a second, but we never have to do that with an electric car. You've never got a big current pull, but of course if you leave a light on, that 12 volts will drop. and I think mine got down to about 5.5, 6 volts, and at that point it just isn't going to let you access the relays that sort of open up the big battery at the bottom. Anyway, hope you've of the car. Anyway, hope you found that interesting. And I'm coming up to the 60,000 kilometre service. We'll see how that goes. I've had a quote for it. It's going to be the biggest service I've had so far. Goodness knows what they're going to do. We'll see. And they also want me to have a go in the new shape, slightly upgraded e-Niro. Try to convince me to buy one of those. I suppose we'll see. It's not called the e-Niro now, it's called the Niro EV apparently, to just make it the same, because in the States this car was called the Niro EV, and in Europe it was called e-Niro. Anyway, just branding, marketing stuff. So thank you very much for watching, and all the new subscribers I've got, really appreciate that. I'll keep making videos of all my mistakes and learnings about owning an electric car in the long term. Take care now.